Are we live?
We are live.
Awesome.
Guys, we know Phoebe. If you've been around here for a while, you know Phoebe. Phoebe is here, being wonderful. And that's Jackson in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Little guy.
Bonus.
We are so lucky that Phoebe is gracing us with our presence today. And I'm just really excited for what she has to talk to you guys about. She and I have been talking for a couple of weeks about bringing her back and about what has been going on in the market and what we're hearing all the time and how much freeze is happening at the moment. There's a lot of people that just are feeling frozen and can't seem to do the things. And Phoebe's here to talk all about that. So I'm going to hand the mic over and I will, of course, interject as I do. But this is Phoebe's show. So we are super lucky. In the comments, just let us know if you're joining live or you're watching a replay. And if you have any questions, please don't be shy. Just ask in the comment section. I'm literally just about to log in on my phone to make sure that I can have all of the questions to pass along to Phoebe because we're on Zoom.
All right. Well, those of you that don't know who I am, I have done a few presentations in the group, but if you've never seen me before, I'll give a little intro into who I am, what I do. I am a mindset and self-mastery coach that works with 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs. And my background is actually in business operations, working on growing and scaling businesses. And what I came to find out through that process is that business strategy is really only about 10% of the equation to success. And the other 90% is so tied closely to mindset. So I decided to make the switch to working in the mindset space and have the business area kind of be a secondary area of focus. And over the last 2 years or so, I've worked with a ton of agents from this group. So I'm very familiar with the industry, with Jess's programs, and just a lot of the pain points that agents experience. So that's a little bit about me. And just to echo what Jess said, if you do have comments throughout our chat, I may not be able to answer them live, but I will go back and respond to your comment, or send me a DM. That works too. And yeah, I'll be sure to respond to that. So I want to just open things up by telling a story about one of my clients. And this person is not actually an agent, but the same thing still applies. So this person scheduled a call with me, an initial call, because he wanted to talk to me about, he thought that something was happening to him, that something was going wrong with him, and he thought that it could be a mindset issue. Now, he was at a place in his business where he was doing about $125,000 a month. So he was doing well, but he had really, really big goals to get to first 150 a month and then on to actually $1 million a month, like really, really big goals. And he'd always been very disciplined about everything. He was disciplined about his schedule. He set goals. He had a really solid team, a solid marketing strategy. He didn't have trouble doing the work. And all of the sudden recently, as he had set this kind of next level goals for himself, he was experiencing a weird situation where he just wasn't wanting to do the work, and he would set out his schedule and then just not do it. He even stopped setting goals for himself because he just found that they were discouraging. And he started to wonder what was happening, if he was losing his motivation, if there was something wrong with him, if he really wasn't going to be able to get to this next level. He started saying that he was lazy and a procrastinator, all these things. So throughout our conversation, what I realized and what I reflected to him was that in the past, when he'd reached each new level of success, it was the direct result of something happening or some extreme need that he had. So initially, the first level of success was because he got married and had kids. And he's like, well, I need to make more money. I need a better business or a better career. So he started his business and got to that initial level of success. And then things were going along, and they ended up buying a house that was a little bit more than what they could afford. So he had to kind of get back into action and start building again, and got to a new level of success. And then his wife quit her job to stay home with the kids, and he had to replace her income and get to yet another level of success. And now, with this new place that he was at, because he didn't have any sort of fear or scarcity or pain going on, he was struggling to get into action. So what I reflected to him was, well, when you have this great need or pain, you're able to get into action. But if that isn't there, then you have trouble doing what you know you need to be doing. So we had to work together to figure out a new source of motivation, a new place to come from, other than scarcity, need,
other than pain.
Yeah. It doesn't sound very nice. So I'd love to hear just in the comments if this is resonating with you. Are you wondering why you aren't doing what you know you need to be doing to take on your next goal, whether it's building your online presence or hiring a team member or going from 6 to 7 figures? Is this resonating with people? Jess, does this resonate with you?
I think it resonates with everyone who's hit a certain level of success and their base needs are met. I think so often people start their business in a little bit of an unhealthy way. And I am the same way, right? When I really started my last real estate team, it was because I'd been working for a builder. I'd gotten engaged. So this was 12 years ago. I'd gotten engaged, and the builder, I guess, had a little fancy for me. And I got fired because I showed up to the office with a ring on my finger. And so because of that, I all of a sudden lost all of my income. And immediately it put me into like super drive. Mm-hmm. I became so focused and so hardworking, and I did the things that I needed to do in order to build my business. And that was when I tapped into my line of credit, and I did 7 figures in 6 months in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
But it came from pain. It came from fear, and it came from pain, and it didn't come from a place of, I guess it didn't come from like a healthy servant place.
Yeah. Because the thing about coming from this place is it has an expiration date. You will either reach a point where you'll reach a point where you get too exhausted, overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out, or in my case, sick, to where you can't continue, or it will the pain of continuing and doing the hard things is worse than the pain of where you're at. And so you stay stagnant. And what happens is usually one of 3 things when this sort of motivation starts to wane for you because you're no longer in so much pain. Either, number 1, you will recreate the pain, aka self-sabotage. You'll stop prospecting, you'll stop reaching out to your market, you'll stop working so many hours or whatever. Or number 2, you'll raise the stakes, like in the case of my client, by buying a bigger house or having his wife quit her job. Or the third thing, which was starting to happen with my client, which is you'll justify settling at where you're at. Pretty easy to say that $125K a month is enough, right? But he knew that he wanted more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot too, right? Sometimes it's people feeling like they're greedy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's people feeling like that it's a worthiness thing. They don't feel like they deserve that next level. I think that every time you're about to make a commitment to yourself to do or to reach that next level, everything comes up. Mm-hmm. Everything comes up. And the number one thing that I talk about when I'm, talking to potential people coming into our programs are those things that come up, right? The things that, because your like future self is like pulling you in one direction, and then your comfort level and like everything else is pulling you in the other direction. And all of the unresolved things that you haven't dealt with, right, that you've been like, like blinders on and working to get to where you are, all of that stuff shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it could be that that place is where you want to be. That can be the case. But in talking with this person, that wasn't true. If we really got down to it and I had him talk about, is this what you really want? Is this really where you want to stay and whatever? And it wasn't. So therefore it's not true. And settling is never going to make you happy. So what I really do is I help people develop a new mindset that isn't motivated to take action from pain or need or struggle, but rather from vision or purpose or fulfillment. And another way to describe taking action from a place of pain is survival, which I know we have all heard that word a million times. So taking action from survival has its limits, and you will run into a place where that no longer works for you. So I do want to talk about a particular story with an agent that I think really perfectly showcases this. This person reached out to me and scheduled a call because she had reached all of the goals that she had laid out for herself. She had had a really rough previous 5 years in life in general, and not necessarily so much in business, but in her life. And she worked really, really hard, kind of like what you were describing, Jess, to get to a place of financial security. She had built her dream home for her and her child. She had been top agent in the area for the last 2 years and was really very stable. But the issue that she was feeling was that she would wake up with this sense of apathy, a sense of like, is this it? A sense of sort of lost that drive and excitement for what she was working on. And she knew that she had bigger visions that she wanted for her life, but she really wasn't sure how to achieve it. And she definitely didn't want to do it in the way that she had over the past 5 years of getting out of that, because that was what you described, Jess, a place of really intense exhaustion and tons of work. She knew about the concept of creating from abundance, but didn't really know any other way than from stress and overwhelm and pressure. So we worked together to create a new mindset, a new way of operating for her. And since working with me over the past 2 years, she's created an incredible online marketing presence through your programs, Jess. She negotiated a 30% higher commission rate with her broker. She is traveling again. She's in a healthy and loving relationship. She's living life from a place of energy and love and fulfillment instead of one that is designed only to escape from pain.
And the transformation, I know who you're talking about, and the transformation just in the way that she is, like who she is being, has shifted so dramatically. Because a lot of the time, and we talk about this so often, but it's in this like kind of ethereal way that, we are not who we need to be yet to reach our next level or to reach our next goal. And so we as people or as humans have to go through a transformation process to be that person, right? If you think about like your ultimate dreams and your ultimate goals and like you imagine that life, and then you look at yourself today and you say, am I that person who achieves those things? 100% of the time, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. Right? If you, like myself included, like I think like, where do I want to be in 5 years? Mm-hmm. What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my business to look like? The presence of like who I have to be in order to reach those things is, my friend calls it my vision self, mm-hmm. right? And so I have to transform, and each person has to transform into their vision self in order to actually achieve their vision. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago versus today, you can see that transformation.
Yeah. Well, and I think something that comes up a lot too in this process is people think that the absence of pain is fulfillment and happiness, but that's not necessarily true. If we have pain and fulfillment, or pain on this side, fulfillment on this side, and we go, eliminate the pain, we end up at zero. There's a whole nother side to get to fulfillment. And that's a whole different journey to go from pain to neutral, from neutral to fulfillment and happiness and all of those things, which is an interesting concept to think about. So the $1 million question, though, that I get asked over and over is, how do we do this? How do we shift our mindset? How do we be someone different? How do we be our vision self? And the ironic thing about the how is it's almost always being asked from a place of survival. Because survival has to have something to follow. It has to have a roadmap because it doesn't have trust and vision and purpose to drive it. It has to see the exact how. And the needing to know the how does work for reaching a baseline level of success. So, for example, if you were to say, how does someone be successful in America? You would say something like, well, they get good grades, they go to college, they get an internship, they get a job, right? That's what we would say. That's the how to be successful in America. But if you want to go above and beyond that and ask, how can I be, how can I have more success than that? You get hundreds of answers, right? There is no one how, there's no standard for what that looks like, because the how is you and what you want, what the results you're looking for, what your strengths are, how you are going. There's a million ways to go about the how. So it's kind of a difficult question to ask, because it isn't something that is going to be like a roadmap A to Z to follow.
That kind of transformation is so deep and so personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a 12-step program. It's not it's not a list of check boxes, mm-hmm. which is the way I think a lot of people view mindset work.
Right.
I did my gratitude journal. Yeah. Therefore, I've done my mindset work for the day, and I'm fine. Mm-hmm. It's not like, okay, these are the 3 things that I have to do to work on my mindset today. Right. That's not it. It's literally has to be like deep, personal, transformative work that, again, changes who you are and how you literally like live and interact with the world. Mm-hmm. How you make decisions, how you look at things, how you take in information, how you process information, how you process triggers, how you communicate. Like, everything changes and shifts because, again, the way that you are now, the who you are today, isn't there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And especially if you have a vision that is bigger than, and you should have a vision that is bigger than you, mm-hmm. and that is scary and terrifying. But the scary and the terrifying that never comes from the actual vision itself. The vision itself is exciting and like,
yes,
energetic and like electric. Mm-hmm. The fear and the part where people say like, I am scared shitless of my vision, it's because of the responsibility that comes with it, and also the person that you have to transform into in order to get there. That's always yes. like where the baseline like level of like terror actually comes from.
Yes, exactly. And while there isn't, that exact A to Z how, what I can speak to and how I usually answer this question is with what the process is, what the process looks like. I can't say how that's going to manifest for you, but the process itself is always the same. And that starts with the obvious. It starts with the vision. What is the vision that you have? And a lot of people haven't had the luxury of actually curating a vision that they want. It's been a vision that they need in order to, survive or, get to a place of comfort with finances or whatever it is. So the first step is always the vision. Now that you are, at this level of success, what is the vision that you actually want to create? Not just because you have to. So that would be the place that I always start with everybody. And I'm sure, everybody here has done dozens of vision exercises, but when we
Don't be so sure. Real estate agents really like to goal set.
Okay.
There's goal setting, and then there's vision work, which is actually quite different. I think a lot of the time people are, especially in real estate, are thinking no more than a year or two ahead.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. The distinction between vision and goals. And the thing about it is, whether it is vision or goals, if you're approaching it from survival, it's a lot harder to connect to that vision day to day or that goal day to day, because survival is not concerned with anything other than surviving. And it's a lot harder to be pulled along by vision or a goal when you're in a survival mindset. So that's the first step, very important. And there is a distinction between vision and goals. And the second step then is where the real work is, at least from my perspective. The second step is to really understand what's in the way. And the reason that sometimes this can be challenging for people is because we've become successful by ignoring those things. We've become successful by shoving them down and compartmentalizing them and not giving them the time of day so that we can stay in action all the time. So sometimes it can be very humbling to admit that those fears or those blockers are there because we worked so hard to ignore them. Or we are aware of them on a surface level. Like, well, I don't have enough time. My schedule always falls apart. I don't have the right systems. We're aware of like the surface level problems, but if we really dig in deep to where the root is, it's something completely different. Just to tie it into my original example with the client that was rejecting schedules and goals and all the usual work that he was used to doing, when we started to uncover why he was rejecting this stuff, what we found out is that throughout his 20s, he was in and out of prison. And so he was very sensitive to his freedom being constrained in any way. And he associated keeping a schedule or having goals as constraining his freedom. And he was only able to overcome that pain when he really needed to, but if he just wanted to, it was very triggering and difficult for him to overcome that. So we had to work on creating new associations to schedules and goals that didn't have him relating to them as constraining his freedom. So there's always those deep level things that are going on in the background. I always tell people, you're not lazy, you're not a procrastinator. You are exhibiting lazy behavior, but you're not a lazy person. That's just not a thing.
No, and I think that like there's so much self-judgment around that. Like, I am a lazy person. I am not worthy of the things that I want. When there's other things at play.
Always. There's something behind our behavior. Always something that it can be rooted out and then worked on. So the first step is vision. The second step is awareness of what's in the way. That includes thought patterns. That includes just your basic how you do your day-to-day, right? That can be things in the physical, like how you're managing your schedule, those simple things. But we want to figure out what all of those are. And then the third step from there is to take action with a new level of awareness. And this can be really challenging because it's also very humbling, because as we're taking action from a new place, a new mentality, a new level of awareness, we almost feel like a beginner again. it feels like we feel like an idiot. Like, why is this hard? Why can't I do this? Why am I experiencing, actually
resistance
again? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and just for what you just said, I had a call with same person, my friend Jen. And she said yesterday, the only way I can transform my patterns is when I can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the awareness becomes so critical. Talk just quickly about the element of getting support through this transformation versus trying to go through this alone. Because I have the same thing. Phoebe knows that I have someone that I work with that does exactly this work and actually has worked with Phoebe, and it's all a group, right? And that's why I brought her here, because I have been working on these things as well, because every single time you up level, new things come up. Mm-hmm. This isn't like a one and done type of work. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of work that as we grow and as we evolve and as we want, our vision expands into whatever it needs to look like for our lives, more and more stuff comes up and more patterns emerge that need to be dealt with. And I know for me that it has been invaluable to have support through that and not just try to navigate and figure out mm-hmm. and ask myself questions all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you can only get so far with reading books or listening to podcasts. I always go back to, you can see problems in other people's lives better than you can see them in your own. Right. And because we have an emotional connection or to how we do things or how we feel, it's really hard to separate from that, because the reason that we operate the way we do is there's a reason for that. Like, we subconsciously had an experience throughout our life that taught us this is how you do this thing. And if we question that, we don't trust it. So it takes someone else offering the idea of a different possibility. So for example, I just signed a new client who's an agent about a month ago. And she, in our initial conversation, she said, I just really want to get rid of these negative thoughts. And for a little bit of context, I'm jumping around here, but she had been an investor, a real estate investor for a long time through an agent. She didn't have her license, and she just recently decided to get her license and start helping other people invest and, be able to do it herself. And I said, okay, what are these negative thoughts? She said, well, I am just thinking, what if I fail at this? What if I'm no good at this? What if I don't like it? And I said, well, that doesn't really sound negative to me. That just sounds really fair, given that you've never done this before. That seems like a valid thing to be concerned with here. What if we stop relating to that as negative and we look at it like, what do we need to do to eliminate that thought? What would have you feeling like you can do this, you're more confident, whatever. And she said, well, more experience, some support, more knowledge. And I said, okay, so let's work on those things, right? Negative thoughts are just thoughts. We decide if we're calling them negative. I call thoughts information. Thoughts are just information about where a potential gap is. So let's work on the gap, So that's the sort of because you could spiral in that thought forever, right? But me being able to reflect that to her and have her shift her perspective on it allows it to open up completely and not stay in that spiral.
And I think it's such a good point, because I found myself so often staring down whatever, even just like a very simple problem.
Yeah.
And I cannot see the solution. Mm-hmm. This happened to me when I was in Croatia. I was at a mastermind in Croatia in the summer, and I'm sitting at breakfast, and Colin, who you may know, Colin Powell, mm-hmm. Is sitting next to me, and I'm like talking about this thing that I want to do and like what this next level of my vision is. And like, he asked me one question. It was worth me going to Croatia. And the answer was so simple because I just genuinely couldn't see what I couldn't see. Mm. And he was like, well, why don't you just do it this way? And I was like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. And it's funny because when we see a problem, our tendency is to skip step 1 and 2 and go straight into action. I know that when I started with my coach, who you're now working with, I was a little bit frustrated because I was like, hey man, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to build my business? Because I'd been struggling on my own for like 2 years. It was really ridiculous. I literally was helping other people grow their businesses and could not even grow my own or even start my own. So I started with him and I was like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? He's like, you know what? We're going to work on you. And that's, was very frustrating for someone like me. I was ready to get into action. And
well, that's also not the answer that most people want to hear.
Right. I know. But what's ironic about that is when you have the level of awareness, it naturally leads in the right direction because you're suddenly seeing it differently. And so the tendency to jump into action often bites people in the butt because it's not where we need to start. So, and then within 6 months, I was doing 15K a month. I went from 0 to 15K in my coaching business in just 6 months after I'd struggled with it for 2 years, by working on myself and not actually obviously I was taking action, but it wasn't the priority. The actions were relatively straightforward.
There's a reason why when we talk about the inner work and the work that we do on ourselves, why we just call it the work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been doing the work. It's not, I've been staring at my P&L for 6 hours a day, which matters. All of that other business strategy, all of it matters. Mm-hmm. But if this isn't okay, nothing else is okay. And I think that that's incredibly important to remember, is that you can have all of the information.
Yeah. And the reason you have to say I'm doing the work is because you can't necessarily say what you're doing because it's not going to mean anything to that person that you're telling
because it's so personal.
Yes. For some people, it may be a totally different set of exercises or thought processes or whatever, and it's just not going to land with whoever you're talking to.
So this is something that I learned a long time ago. And I think that a lot of people who've been in the business world for a long time and who have worked on their businesses and invested in their businesses for a long time have probably figured out. Business programs, in my opinion, I would almost say, I'm almost fact, business programs are better in groups. Personal work is one-on-one work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's funny because the one-on-one work that I've been doing for the last, 3 years with the coach that I was working with, that was one-on-one, 3 years of my life, so much time, so much intensity. And recently this year, I have switched to building my business and I've joined a group of people that are all doing that same thing. So
doing the business, the strategy,
Yep. And I just came from, a 2-day mastermind in San Diego where getting in that room with people that are all in that same place, working on those same things is incredibly motivating. But that perspective on mindset work or one-on-one, that is not as conducive because it's not going to apply to everyone the same. And everybody hearing something will take something away for them that's totally different. And that's why the how is a really weird way to talk about it.
Because it's the how is also going to look different. And sometimes I get on a call with my coach that I'm working on this with, and I go into the call with a specific idea of what we're going to talk about. And then an hour goes by and I'm like, oh, that's where we went. That's where we went. And, I've never told anybody that before. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I have found doing this kind of work has been so different and so much more growth oriented than all of the talk therapy that I've ever done my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a lot of people that are doing this high level one-on-one work because everybody wants to shift to the group model, or, some sort of program model, which is understandable. But I'm committed to keeping it where it needs to be, at least for the time being, because this work is the only way to do this work. This is the only way, and very few people are honestly doing it or offering it.
So for people who we've been talking for a while, for people who are curious more to learn more about you, or who want to kind of maybe this resonated and they're like, yeah, I've been feeling stuck or feeling like I'm disenchanted with the things. How can they kind of learn more about you? How can they talk to you? How can they see what next steps with you might look like?
Yeah. So I am offering to do a complimentary deep dive coaching session, with people that are listening. And it will be a live coaching call, and we'll talk about what's going on, what the problems are, and you'll either leave with a strategy for where to go next, or we'll talk about the possibility of working together. So one thing I will say is that this is geared more towards people that have reached, that sort of level of success. If you're just starting your real estate business, it's a very different level of support. So I am specifically talking to those people that are at the place where they've done a lot, but they still have a huge vision for themselves, and they're just feeling stuck on how to move forward with that. Or maybe they're not doing the things they know that they should be doing, even though they really, really want to get there. And mindset might be the key to finally breaking through that barrier.
I love that. So what we're going to do is we are going to put Phoebe's information in the comments. David, Elliot, I will get you Phoebe's information as soon as we get off this. Nicole too. So what we'll do is we'll get you Phoebe's. We'll just email is probably the easiest way to connect initially. So we'll give you her email. You can reach out or however she wants to do it. She's the boss of her own self.
Yeah. So last time I did this, I ended up booking 47 calls. I had a lot more availability then. So I am going to probably cap this at around 20 calls. Yeah. I've left my weekend open. I do have a couple slots this afternoon, and I can work around my regular coaching schedule next week. But just so people know, if you are interested, send me an email right away, because it is just going to have to kind of be first come, first serve. I'm very low tech. Just send me an email, coaching call with the subject line, and I'll get back to you right away.
Amazing. If you guys have any other questions at all, please use the comments. Phoebe will be in there. She will answer questions. She will drop her email and respond to anybody who's put their hand up. And just let's say thank you for her time and for Jackson's time on the couch behind her. And yeah, I'm really glad that we're able to bring something that is not my specialty, and that's not something that I have done or that is my expertise. Mm-hmm. I'm the systems and the builder and the marketer but I also understand how important this is and how important it's been in my growth and my success over the years as well. So I'm really, really glad that we have Phoebe. And so if you're here and you're watching, let's say thank you and give her a little smoochy smooch. And and we'll get you guys all the info that you need.
Thanks, Jess.